Welcome to the Women of Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Calder-Hume. I am super stoked today to be talking about the growth and evolution of ambition in careers and in relationships. And we're doing this with my awesome friend, Natalie Willis, who I'm so lucky to call one of my in real life personal friends. And we're going to look at her story of seeing ambition within herself while she built her career, and then while she homeschooled her children, and then also in the relationships that she chooses to have. And I'm really grateful for this piece that comes up about relationships because it wasn't planned, but I think it impacts a lot of us in our marriages and our partnerships and our friendships, where we really want to have quality interactions with the people around us. And we talk a little bit about how that then flows into where we spend our time as ambitious women. If you listen to last week's episode on core values, you can see how understanding your underlying desires and needs will determine the choices you make and the relationships you have. And moving forward to the new year, I really want to look at how those values and those end goals help us to choose the path that we take moving forward. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about goals and things moving forward into the new year. And this conversation with Natalie illustrates a lot of that and builds into that conversation. So I'm excited to share that today. Hello and welcome to the Women of Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Calder-Hume. Today we get to talk to Natalie Willis. Yay! Thanks for being on, Natalie.
Thanks for having me.
Natalie is the baby sleep trainer, which is so awesome. Certified baby and toddler sleep consultant. She's been doing this for 10 years now, and I have been lucky enough to know her that entire time and get to watch this amazing process of having young children, giving fantastic advice to friends and family, and then actually harnessing that into a business. She's helped 4,000 families so far and has courses and books and online trainings and all kinds of things that she has expanded her business to include. So thank you so much for being on with us today, Natalie.
No problem.
Tell us, when I think of ambitious women, you're one of the people I think of. And we were lucky enough to know each other when we both lived in LA. Neither of us live there now. But we both met there when our second kids were very young. I think I was still pregnant. And you had
because you had your baby on, I think, my older child's birthday.
Yep. Yeah. And I think you had us over for dinner when you had like a 9-week-old, which blows my mind that you could be a hostess to someone totally new at that period of time. So, check off the box for ambition. But tell us what your ambitiousness has looked like in your life, maybe starting with childhood.
I have to be very honest that this is a really interesting subject that we're talking about right now. I have a very close friend who is recently divorced. And as this person is dating, and they're older, they're closer to my age. I'm 37. They're a little older than me. And they have been using these apps. And I think anybody who knows somebody, especially an older person who, or like not a person in their 20s who's using these apps to date, gets the sense. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Utah, but I feel like in other major cities, and maybe in Utah as well, it's like, it's a struggle. It's like really hard. And one of the things that he mentioned, and he's a professional, is he's like, yeah, I keep encountering these women who are, have these jobs and they're not really very ambitious, and they're close to my age. And I really am looking for somebody who takes their career like more seriously, and they're really ambitious. And I think in talking back and forth to him, we sort of identified that was one of the goals that he had for a partner, was somebody that was really ambitious. And I have to tell you, it is honestly the first time probably in my life that I have seriously thought about that label, and seriously thought about it in terms of how it applies to me, and also how it applies to my children. And a trait that I think that for so many of us, we just are the way that we are. And sometimes, especially if we try not to be like critical or judgmental people, we're not necessarily like looking around and being like, well, I'm this and that person's not that, so whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I really realized that that's a trait that you can nurture. And it's not a trait that we talk about with women, I think, a lot. And And so, and I look at my children, I'm like, are they ambitious? How do I nurture this ambition? And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it's been recently something I've been thinking about a lot in terms of like, oh, I guess I am an ambitious person.
Mm-hmm.
That's why my life has turned out the way that it has. I think it's because it's been the ambition that has been driving me. So yeah. But can you remind me your specific question? You
Yeah,
said,
just so looking at this lens of ambition, because I feel the exact same way where I did not attribute this to myself until recently. And now that I've learned more about it and I'm looking through this lens, I can see it in my life. And so can you see going back that trickle of ambition that's gone
yeah,
throughout your life? Because it is a personality trait. So it starts, in very early childhood. We
oh
just
yeah,
might not recognize it.
totally. My whole entire life. I mean, like I can like maybe not my earliest memories, but I can think of a conflict, for example, that my parents had with an older sibling of mine, and I couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 because I remember how old she was, and I remember at that age thinking that my parents were completely mishandling the situation, and that I think I may have even said to them like, "Why aren't you doing this?" And I had somehow already, this would have been like 1993. And I remember even then being like, why aren't you taking her to counseling? You definitely shouldn't go to this counselor. This is a better counselor. And I remember, I mean, it's just like, I sort of don't remember it too much in middle school, but I remember in high school, like taking every opportunity, sort of feeling like the world is my oyster. So like everything that there was to do, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do theater. I could do swim team. I was always trying different things. And like, I just thought it was so great to be able to do. And I always wished, in fact, like I could see where I didn't have more opportunities and I wish that I did. I also think that an element of ambition, and I'm not really sure if this applies to other people, but something for me was that I consistently looked to the adults in my life that I admired, and I tracked what the choices that they made in their life, their partners, what their jobs were. I used to be Mormon. I'm no longer Mormon, but I think within Mormonism, I had a lot of models, of like different, not actually a lot of different models, but I sort of was like, yeah, this is what I want from my life. So it's always very clear for me, like, this is what I want. So what do I have to do to get to the point of where I want? And I think sometimes people conflate, or maybe there's some crossover where they're competitive and they're ambitious. And that's where you see people who are like hyper successful, right, in business and that sort of thing. I don't really have the competitiveness aspect to myself. Actually, I'm more of a like, I hope everybody has a good time. And as soon as I feel like I'm in competition with someone, I don't really want to do it anymore, or at least what they're doing isn't really relevant to me. Like if I was better at my job, then I would be more successful than them. I guess I'm not that good at it. So, or I'm not as good at them. So they deserve the success basically. Right. Or they're doing something shady to be successful. And I especially don't want to be them because that's like gross. So yeah, it's been present my entire life. I even see it as far as my relationship with my partner is concerned, like my spouse. I'm getting to the point where a lot of my friends are either having marital issues or getting divorced. And everybody sort of told me it was going to happen. I was like, nah. And now I'm like, oh, if they're not getting divorced, like I can see more and more of my friends who are dissatisfied in their relationships. And I honestly think even ambition drives the success. Well, I should say like drives me to have success in my relationship. So both to be introspective about what I need to change or do in order to be a good partner, but also demanding from my partner that they address the issues that I feel like are problematic and asking what I need to do as well. But ambition is like this constant wanting to have and be the best that you can be. And it's not necessarily material possessions, right? It could be like education or having boundaries with people or exercising or eating properly. It's like every aspect of your life. You just want that to be the best and the healthiest that it can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Let's pause and talk about that. I hadn't actually planned on talking about the relational aspect, but I'm experiencing this so much in my marriage right now. And my husband. I am like on top of like, oh, let's like learn all the perfect communication skills. Let's read all the books. And that's actually how you and I got connected. But anyway, let's learn all the skills and like be awesome. And like he's on the same page, but he doesn't have as much time and doesn't have as much natural interest in growth as I do. And that has been really hard for probably like 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But his style of being ambitious in our relationship is still there. It's just like a different flavor. And I've seen so much of that in the last couple months come out where we are now on the same page and we've kind of worked through that, like where we have different pacing and maybe slightly different goals. And it's been so amazing. And then to talk about the piece of ambition that is in this, where I am, we're similar in this way, a pusher and a driver, and like have all this energy to like get to a certain point. And um, it's been awesome, and it's been really, really hard. And I've had to wait for my partner to process on his own time. And now we're kind of on the same page again. And it's awesome. And I'm so glad we didn't like give up sooner, or, because, end goals can change and things like that. But it's really cool to hear that from somebody else, because your husband, Michael, is awesome, but he's also a very different personality type from you. Have you seen that, like, your different ways of achieving, has that clashed for you?
I mean, I think that like going back to not realizing that it's ambition, I'm sure if I thought about it, I could think about ways in which it would have been beneficial. Like, let's be honest, when you're in your 30s as a woman is when you're really starting to, for many people, is when you're really starting to appreciate and understand and accept and see who you really are. So I think there's plenty of women with all sorts of different traits who are like, oh, I guess I'm kind of an introvert. Like, why don't I like to go to these parties? Oh, okay, I'm an introvert. And they would never have like picked up or processed that, right? So I think it's probably pretty common, especially if we haven't had, if we haven't been pushed into, if we haven't been socialized into having professions. Again, it's like Mormon women, where our primary role is in the home as a mom. But as far as it pertains to like our partners, we are, if we are the primary caretaker of our children, if we are the primary drivers, and it ends up being the case for so many people anyway, whether they have a religious background or not, that the woman is a primary caretaker, whether she's working full time or not, right? Mm-hmm. So if you are setting the tone in the home, and you are you're setting the tone, like for your children, you're setting the tone for your partner, you are setting the not so much the goal. I guess it is the goal, right? Like this is where we are meeting, right? Like we are meeting this level in our family. Like we do our best in school, and we may not say that is an A. We're saying that I know that you are not working this. Oh, expectations. Mm-hmm. So we set the expectations within our home. So if my expectation, I will either have the relationship, the marriage that I want, or I will not be in this marriage. There is no third path for me where I'm going to be like sitting in a mediocre relationship.
Yes. And we've had that conversation, and that is so vital to have. And it's terrifying.
I think my partner thinks it's like, are you like, why do you go there? I'm like, because I'm not like, I think it's worse to not tell you that and then be unhappy years down the line and then, split up. That's not what I want. I am telling you.
I will not be resentful. I will not stay in a place of resentment. We will either be where I want to be, or I will go somewhere else.
Right. So, and I think when you're really clear and you communicate that to your partner, I'm sure it can be upsetting and scary, and maybe it can make them feel insecure, but you're also like, I am here to work on this. I am here to talk about this. I love you. I'm nice to you. Like, I'm not being aggressive. I'm not abusing you. We have tools. I am willing to make changes. I am showing you that I am making changes. And I think it might be easier to model people. Like, as an example, my husband is absolutely like genius, brilliant. He's like the smartest person that I know. And he reads a lot in his free time. And now I read a lot in my free time because he models that for me, right? He was far more athletic than I ever was. And now I'm athletic. So it's not so much like, oh, I'm so great. Like, do what I say because I think this is the best. It's like, I think modeling each other's good behaviors and taking the best you can. So maybe it's a little bit easier, I think, for our partners to model us in terms of like what we're asking them to do in our relationship. Plus, by the way, then they're happier. I think they must recognize, and they see other relationships where like, that sucks. That lady's crazy. Like, they don't get along. That guy doesn't seem happy. My relationship's great. Like, my partner likes me. We seem to get along. Like, she's really nice to me. So I think it like it feeds itself because it improves over time, and there's less conflict and less fighting and less anger and resentment.
Yeah, for sure. My husband is very oriented to exceptionalism and wanting to be the best in his personal life. And I take that and I apply it to our relationship. I want to have an exceptional marriage, an exceptional relationship with my children. And so when it comes up, well, why are we doing all this work? So-and-so isn't spending their money or their time this way. So-and-so is, they're fine like this. And it's like, okay, do you want to have a relationship like so-and-so? Is that where you want to be? Look at the communication level, or look at the personal expression or the authenticity in that relationship. And it's tricky because I don't want to be comparing myself to other people.
Or critical to the choices people make.
Right. But like, what are we going to choose? and how are we going to apply our time? And it's okay to make different choices than other people because we value different things.
Right.
And that has been key.
Yeah. And to me, it is irrelevant what other people are doing within their lives. Like there are so many things about myself that I wish I could change tomorrow. I have friends who are like not type A, and I really wish I wasn't that type A. There are friends who can deal with like a little bit more chaos within their home than I can. I have almost no patience for my children, like some, but not very much. And I wish I had more patience. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, hey, these are the things that I wish I could change about myself, but probably will never change. Somebody else isn't ambitious, like, you can work, you can focus on trying, what are the traits of ambitious people? How can I adopt those traits? But I think another like sort of side to this is like, just like I don't realize that I'm an ambitious person. I think there are people that don't realize that they sit in mediocrity and they don't, and it's fine for a while until something happens, until they turn around 20 years later. They're like, I don't even know this person that I married to, or like, man, like ignoring like just letting go that my kid was like not really working as hard as they could. And I didn't really push them because I didn't want to fight with them. They are kind of a dud now because I didn't do more. So eventually it comes back to bite you in the butt. And so I just don't want to sit in a place where I'm just, on the flip side of this, I've also become a person where I'm finally starting to not tackle every single problem immediately as it happens. I'm much better now about being like, this is not something I need to talk about. This is not something that needs to be dealt with. Let me see how this turns out. That's like another side of think of the ambition, is that I've not, sometimes I'm like, maybe this issue will resolve itself. And often it does. So one of the dark sides of ambition is like on every single thing all the time. And
that's just really hard on our partners
and our kids and ourselves and everything. Yeah.
And I think that comes from maturity and introspection, and maybe taking a note from maybe our little calmer partners and learning from them and being like, oh, I don't actually have to do everything myself.
Right. I don't have to worry about everything all the time. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. That was a wonderful detour. Okay. So tell us, we'll shift gears into business mode now, and we can talk about the personal stuff as it comes up. But tell us about choosing to start a sleep training consulting business. How did that come about?
I was, I think, 24 years old when I gave birth to my first child, Olive. She's 13 now. And I was like, it's going to be so easy. And I read Baby Wise and I was like, I'm going to have her on a schedule. And Baby Wise for a type A person is like, I don't know, man, it's like a really bad drug. Like you can't get enough of it and then you're addicted to it. And then it totally, if it doesn't work for your kid, it's just not a great situation. I feel like
it's really easy to feel like if it doesn't work for me, it's something I'm doing wrong.
Right.
Maybe this just isn't right for my kid.
Or you don't know, whatever. Right. So yes, that's exactly correct. So that was what happened to me, is that it didn't really go well. And so of course, like an ambitious type A postpartum anxiety person, I was like, what? And this was in the early days of like message boards and stuff. So I was like obsessive about it. I mean, I talked to everyone. I remember having Mormon missionaries over for dinner and talking to them about it. And my husband was these
19-year-old boys.
No, they were girls, but
girls. Okay, women, girls still.
But they were women. But okay. I mean, I probably talked to the males. I talked to everybody about it. I just it was everything I could think about all the time was her sleep. And then I had a friend that Milo, my son would have just been born, but this is the baby that you met, or you mentioned, that was 9 weeks old. And that by that point, like my name had started going to like, I didn't have a business. But I would get random text messages from like women in Idaho. They're like, my cousin met you in New York in your ward. And she said that you know how to get your babies to sleep. And I was wondering if you could help me know. And so I started talking to those people. And just as like an asterisk to all this, prior to this point, I had gone to culinary school. I had tried being a real estate agent. I tried to start a culinary, like a catering business. My parents are Argentine immigrants to the US. I think immigrants, this is one of the reasons that I think it's really sad that immigrants get a bad rap, because if you are a person that can walk thousands of miles and get to the US, I can tell you like 10 people I know now that won't walk down the street to do any job. And these people are like they're ready to work.
Well, they're ambitious people. They have done a huge thing. They know multiple languages. Like, I don't care if they're a janitor, like that is who they are.
Right. And so these are the types of people that immigrants tend to be, especially those who come under like really bad circumstances. So my mom and dad came and they eventually got into the real estate business. And so I think that was part of it, is that I didn't realize that I was subconsciously like, yeah, you own a business. Like you just do, this is what you do, and you work at home, and like you can manage your family and, whatever. So I had sort of started and not been successful. And then by the time my son was born, so I did all that, had my baby, spent those 2.5 years like being obsessed about sleep. Maybe even actually that's during her first couple of years of life before Milo was born, was when I was trying to do the catering business. That's actually where I met my best friend, Rachel, who works on my team at Baby Sleep Trainer. She's amazing, but I was catering a wedding and she came, and that's where I met her. Anyway, so I was doing that. And then at the same time, I had this friend named Angie, and Angie and I knew each other from before I had Olive, and she had a baby and she owned her own business. And she was like, Natalie, you have to help me sleep train this child because I can't work, because I work for myself. So I can't work until she sleeps. And if you help me sleep train her, I will like make your website for free. And if it works, because you need to be a consultant. And I was like, no way, no one is going to hire me to do this. I'm like 26 years old at this point. I have zero training. I am not a social worker or a nurse, because I had already, of course, explored the sleep coaching business and had decided that like I wasn't going to be able to do it, because I've always been very aware of my limitations. And so I think honestly, sometimes that can be another part of ambition, is being really clear on who you are and what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Mm-hmm. I totally feel that. Yeah. I very much know where I am not an expert, or like I feel like an imposter.
Right.
And other people just are like, yeah, I'll just do it. It's fine.
Yeah,
like,
like, don't do that. You don't know how to do that. Don't sign up for that. Anyway, so that's what happened. And then she like shared my name with a few friends on a Facebook group for women in her sorority that had babies in like 2011. And then I got like a Yelp page in LA, and it just like absolutely blew up. And then I worked with like thousands of people in those first couple of years. I wrote a book, and then eventually Rachel and I made those online courses together. And so, yeah, that's how I got started. And I think that I swear to you that until like, I've only lived in this house 3 years. And I think the revelation came to me in this house shortly after I moved in, that I went through this 6 to 12 month period of time where I finally was accepting that, like, I really truly thought any woman in my situation who had had my experience with Olive would have done exactly what I did. And it's like, it makes me laugh now that I think that, because now I realize like, that's not true. Like a lot of people don't have this skill set, or to keep going or driving or growing or sticking with it when it's failing. And like, I own this business is me. And so if it's not successful, it's definitely my fault. It's not anybody else's fault. It's all me. Right. And then seeing other people come into this space, because I was one of the first who had like an online course, and then become far more successful than me, or use my ideas, or frankly, give bad advice, or not care if they're helping people or not, but like being better influencers and all of those things. Those were really, really hard things for me. And then accepting that if I either chose to abandon this, or had not been Mormon, or if I had chosen a different path in life, or hadn't gotten married, hadn't had kids, like what more could I have achieved? And then going through this period of time of like, I could have so much more money. And now coming to this other place of how I feel about money. And it's in terms of it's like the proxy of money and success, and like how I have really successful friends who have a lot of money who are not very happy. And I would never trade lives with them, because I have a great partner and like kids that I love, and this like wonderful home, and how those things are like more important than your financial success. Mm-hmm. That's the path.
That's awesome. Tell me about the early years. I remember when you started your Yelp page, and I remember you asking for friends and family, if I have helped you, can you give me a review? And like that place of vulnerability of asking for support, what was that like in those early years?
That's fine. I mean, it seemed like pretty straightforward to me that like I helped you, and if it worked, could you tell other people? And I used Yelp all the time. And I don't think there were really any other sleep coaches there. And or at least not very many. And one major advantage I had when I started my business is because I was so young, even though there were other sleep coaches, they had all modeled their businesses or in a way that they felt that was natural to them. So in the same way that I really struggle with Instagram, and not even get me started on TikTok, other coaches, when I started my business, really struggled with texting. Maybe they emailed, right? But they were, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to text my clients. Like, you can email me if you want to, but like, I have my phone with me all the time. So I was always like having this like constant support from my families. And actually that's what made it easier for me to do my full-time parenting and full-time, working all the time. So to this day, like I have my phone with me right here. Like I have multiple text messages that I will respond to when I get off of this podcast. So the early days were just me. And then I remember I probably said it to you, like I'd have friends come over for dinner and be like, hi, it's bedtime. So I'm going to have my phone with me and I'm totally paying attention to what you're saying, but I might have to respond to someone while we're sitting here. So please don't think that I'm not paying attention to you. And that was it for like years. And that's how I like churned through and really like, was able to develop my proprietary method. Because I just like literally like worked like thousands and thousands of hours with so many different people that it got to the point where there's just like, I know everything almost. There can't be that much more for me to know because I've worked with so many people,
Mm-hmm.
so many babies.
That's one of the things I love about your whole process is so much. And I've read your book and we've talked a ton, and like the information you give me when I call you and tell you my exact situation is the exact thing I read in the book. And I happen to have access to because I'm very lucky, but I can go to this book that is not huge, by the way. It's fantastic for early parents.
Right.
I can get that expert advice, and it is literally the same thing that I could ask you in person and you would tell me.
Yeah.
It's like the coolest.
It's because when I had Olive, I remember like my husband was in law school. We had no money. We had debt. Like it was like negative net worth, and I didn't have money to buy a book. Are you kidding me? Like I barely had enough money to buy like groceries, right? And like pay our rent. And I remember buying this Healthiest Sleep Habits Happy Child.
Uh-huh.
And I remember buying it from Barnes and Noble and it was like $15. And that was like,
well, and that is a huge book. It's like an inch and a half. It's
right.
Like dense science.
I know. So but I wanted to buy that book because I knew that was like the be all end all. And it was really, really fabulous. And that $15 really hurt. Like that was, and so I wrote that book. That was what I did before I started my sleep courses because I wanted every woman, well, it's really every family now, but at the time I was like, any mom, like if you're me, if you're 19, 20 years old, you have no money and you have this baby and you need to get them to sleep, anybody can take that book. And if you read the reviews, like that's what it says, like anybody can read the book and get their baby to sleep. And that was my goal with that book because I wanted it to be like, I wanted to democratize the information. I wanted, like, when I'm no longer on this earth, I wanted to leave something behind that people could read and solve this problem.
Awesome. And that is a mark of an ambitious person, right? Like you're leaving a mark, you're achieving a goal.
Yes. I just didn't want anyone to suffer like I had suffered.
That is
like it was not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I self-published that book because I was like, if I go and try to get it published, like they're going to control everything and like I'm going to make less money. So I just like hired an editor. Another friend from New York is an editor at like Penguin or something. And I'm like, hey, do you have someone I can hire as freelance? I didn't even know how editors worked. I just thought I would write it and they would like no. So this editor is genius. Her name is Nina Shield. And I knew she didn't write the book because she didn't have any babies at the time. So I knew it had to be me that wrote it, but I would like word vomit and then she would like return them. I'm like, yes, that is what I was trying to say. And so she was really key and I like paid her. And then now the book like sells on Amazon and I just like, I don't have to do anything with it. It's just there. But anyone who wants to can use it anywhere in the world and help their baby sleep.
How did you go from being a one-on-one person consultant to choosing to, like, I know the why behind the book, but choosing to pivot that in your business and continue growing?
The book seemed like a very natural thing. Like I was like, I could write this all down. Like I already write my plans down. I felt at the time, like morally, like very strongly that I wanted to do it. And the idea for online courses I can't remember exactly, but I don't think it had occurred to me yet or something like that. But shortly after the book, I went right into making the courses, but that was serendipitous because Rachel left her place of employment and I was like, can I hire you? And she has a reality TV background. So that was very serendipitous. And so I had that opportunity to make it with her because she knew how to like run a camera and like editing skills. But it was because I was having a consultation with someone and I fell asleep. I almost fell asleep in the middle of it. Like I was desperately trying to stay awake. And I'm like, I have this conversation 10 times every week. Or sometimes more. So I'm literally telling people the exact same thing. And I know everybody thinks their child's like a precious unicorn. And I understand that everybody has different situations, but I'm here to tell you, like, it's you that is the precious unicorn. Your child can like be successful. And I understand that I appreciate and respect that parents need to find a coach and a method that resonates with them. But by the time they're coming to me, I am telling them different things. And there are probably like 50 different combinations of things I might tell you depending on your situation, but I'm still having the same conversations. And I was like, I've got to find a way to like put this all down on paper or in a video because, like then people can and it was cheaper. So people could do that, be successful, not have to spend as much money. Once again, it's accessible to even more people. So more people can solve this problem on their own. I just was like, I don't know. And I was like worried that I wouldn't, like, what if people didn't hire me for one-on-ones anymore? What if there were more sleep coaches? It's exactly what's happening now, So I don't know. It seemed like I couldn't imagine not doing it. It seemed like the totally normal next step.
That's so awesome. And I'm sure there are people just laughing to hear that it just feels so natural to you. Well, anyone would go start a business. Anyone would go write a book. It's fine. I just figured it out.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. I was like, well, why wouldn't I? I was like saying the same thing over and over again. Why wouldn't I just write it down? And like, it always the steps. I think I'm a problem solver. So I'm like, the solution is this. Well, I'll just do this. And then the problem is solved.
So what's next?
I'm currently working on a project that it's in this like early stages. I'm working on creating a camera to help sleep train your baby.
Oh, cool.
Podcast and wants to help, they should email me at Natalie@babysleeptrainer.com. Because one of the hardest things about like a startup, everything else I've been able to do on my own or with Rachel, and then this other genius person on my team, Andy, who like makes my online platform. But this is like a big deal. We're trying to make the prototypes right now, and like it's a whole other industry I don't know anything about, and so I'm going for that. And then honestly, like what I think the next thing I might do is depending on what happens with that. So that's called Well Slept. That's like a new company that I've started, but it's in its extremely early stages. And I'm working, with people on my team. But I'm not a tech person, and it's a tech company. So that's that. And then I don't know. I think the next thing I'm going to do is wait for Rachel's littlest kid, who's like 2.5. I'm going to wait for him to be in school. And then I just want to like start a business with her. She lives in Reno, and I want her to be the one, to the extent that she wants to be. I want her to be in the driver's seat, and I want to invest in her business and be there to support her and work with her. But I want to be able to like help let like her be the one that's in charge, because I'm always the one in charge. And I want her to grow. And she's ambitious, smart, genius, hard worker, wonderful in every way. And I'm just excited to like see her be successful. And I want her to have something that's like more of her own. So we talk about like starting a, maybe it's like a karaoke space, because we love karaoke, or like a children's indoor play area. So probably just continuing to start businesses and do other projects and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Helping baby sleep through the night.
I'll say it again. I think you need to become a business coach, because oh my gosh, you have so much knowledge and information. It blows my mind, and you've helped me out a ton. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But I think you'd be really good at that.
Start
a mastermind, start an online course for entrepreneurs.
But I find that I think the reason I think if I needed money, like if I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this job anymore, I need to do something else, I could do that and be successful. But I think I want to I don't know. I think I want to try like a different thing that's out a little bit outside of coaching, or in addition to, because the coaching keeps happening. I still work with my clients. Like I can totally do this business right now and totally do another business. So I'm more excited to see what happens with Well Slept, or again, give Rachel an opportunity to be have something that I can support her on, but that is more driven by her.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So I want to ask you a little bit about, the last 10 years, you've been building this business, you've been solving problems constantly, writing a book, doing courses, starting, just a tech company on the side. It's fine. Have you found that has fulfilled that desire in you for achievement and growth? Or is that bucket filled, or do you still feel that way throughout your life? Because I have this hunger in me. I'm like, is this ever going to get calmed down? if I have a project to work on that's big enough, will I feel satisfied in this area, or am I just always going to be hungry?
Interesting. So two answers to that question. I think that living my life this way, and we haven't talked about, nor do we need to get into like how I approach volunteer commitments or like things I make at school or in other spaces that I am in, right? But I think it's like breathing for me. Like it's very natural for me to be like, I'm just going to do this. And so I don't know that there is some sort of like depth of it being filled, because it is just like who I am and how I like walk through life, you know? But I do think as my own feelings around achievement and success and like, honestly, like politics and things like that have evolved as I've grown older, I view that, I think I view it in a different way. I also think that like I'm really proud of Baby Sleep Trainer, and I think it's really grown, and it's something I'm just really proud of what it is, and I'm proud of the group of people that I work with on it. And so maybe because I finally have accepted that it is like successful and I'm happy with it, you know, even if it's not the biggest or, you know, whatever. I don't know. Oh, I'm having a hard time articulating my answer to this, but I guess it's that, yeah, like I did this and I accomplished it. And like, that's great. Now, and not anybody could do it. And like, see, and now this is what's really interesting. Now that I have finally accepted and understood, like, oh, I can do this, I am suddenly far more careful about signing up to be in charge of things. I used to be before that I would be like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll sign up, I'll run this other thing, whatever. And now I won't, because I understand how valuable this trait that I have is. And so I'm far more likely to be like, where do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to be working with? What volunteer organization do I want to devote myself to? And so I think that has, I guess what I'm saying is that has tempered my like this, like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Cause now I'm like, wait, what do I want to do? Where can I use this to be like helping the most people that aligns like with my value system? So it's tempered it a little bit because I'm more thoughtful about the choices that I make.
Yeah, I love that. I felt little pieces of that too, because I volunteer for lots of things and I have to not. But as I come to know myself better and see where my values are, yeah, I can be a lot more careful and ask better questions too when an opportunity arises to know if it's going
Yeah.
to fulfill
I
my
think
long-term
too,
needs.
a big part of this is I think what happened through COVID, like actually I came to you for you to teach me how to homeschool, and I homeschooled my son, which is something I absolutely honestly like. I can't believe that hasn't come up until now, but I think that experience was actually the thing that finally like sealed the deal for me in terms of accepting like my ambition, because I've never done something that I was, maybe besides exercising at Orange Theory, which I love. I've never done anything in my life where I was like, I'm not going to be able to be successful. I usually abandon things when I know that I'm not going to work. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm not wasting my time. Homeschooling was like an absolute, I mean, it was, as everyone probably experienced, was like, it was a disaster. Like in-person public school was a complete disaster. And so I had to pull my son out in order to like keep him successful for the rest of his life. Honestly, it would have been a lost year. And when I was successful with that, like he's gone back to school and he knows how to do multiplication and division because I sat my butt next to him for hours every day, even though I run my own business and like I was dealing with all that stuff. And I accomplished that because I did not have a choice. That was like, I had to do that. And that's really the thing where I was like, okay, like I can really do anything that I put my mind to. And so maybe that was actually, honestly, I think I honestly consider homeschooling a bigger success than like Baby Sleep Trainer, like being able to get through that year, not because it was even so hard, but because it was like the last thing I would ever want to do.
Yeah.
Like homeschooling. But I did it and he did it and we did it together. So
Oh,
yeah.
it makes me so happy. I'm so happy
Thank
for
you
you.
too, because you're the one that taught me how to do it all. Thank you.
Well, thank you for trusting me with that. It was really fun to be able to give back to you because you have helped me so much. Okay, this has been super awesome. I appreciate how quickly you speak with me. We can just snap through so many things. So I want to close. Anything else you want to share with ambitious women out there who are coming to accept themselves? And then where can people find you if they would love to work with you?
To the women out there who, I hope that this conversation and any other conversations you have with people help them recognize these traits within themselves And I think this should be like, if a person recognizes that they are ambitious, that is like there are very few traits that I think a person could be luckier to have innately than being ambitious. And a lot of women, especially younger women with young children who are their primary caretakers, don't have a lot of outlets for that. And the outlets that you do have, people are like, well, she's just like a PTA volunteer. Like she just does this. She just does this. Like, you need to recognize like how special and that is, and how special that trait is about yourself. And you should love it about yourself, because you're very, very lucky that you have it. And you will always continue to invest in that trait. So it will grow, and your life will be beautiful because of all of the things that you will do. And if you want to find me, I am at Baby Sleep Trainer everywhere. So TikTok, unfortunately, Instagram, website, everything, Baby Sleep Trainer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie. Appreciate everything that you've contributed here. It's been awesome. This has been an episode of the Women of Ambition podcast, and I'm your host, Alyssa Calder-Hume. Next week, we're going to look a little more deeply at ambition as a value to build off previous week's episode on identifying core values and what we've learned and expanded here with Natalie, and go forward to prepare for the new year. If you'd like to listen to more episodes or leave a review, you can visit womenofambitionpodcast.com. Thanks so much.